Okay, so this is after lunch. Everybody move up. You're too far away. Come on, everybody up, everybody up. So I don't care, give me a dirty look, I don't give a shit. Come on, everybody up. Everybody up. You're fine in the middle. The middle row is the back row. There's no back row Baptists. All right, everybody up. You can't get you together if we're all spread apart. Okay, so as this is happening, so I have a couple of questions. So, and I need audience participation, okay? So how many of you, this is one of your first conferences learning about this, so you're excited to learn about these types of strategies? So kind of I'm more on the novice side, okay? Yeah, no shy, especially if you're sitting next to Bill Miller. How many of you have done a couple, but you're getting in the weeds more and you're expanding? Okay, so middle of the row. And then how many of you, this is your life? This is all you do, these types of strategies, this is all you do. All right, okay. All right, so my more important question, and this is gonna be less about your head and more with your heart. So, and this is a stand up, okay? I need you to stand up if whether it was today, whether it was yesterday, whether you came in knowing, but you 100% know that the strategies that we're talking about in this is the only way that we are going to join hands and actually fix healthcare. If you believe in that, I need you to stand up. If you're sitting down, you paid $3,000 or however much you paid for the wrong place. Okay, my first lesson, you guys can sit down, thank you. This presentation, I'm gonna walk through 10 lessons on how to get more clients doing this type of stuff. And number one is, at Ascend, I talked about this being our superpower. The number one thing is, if you truly do not believe in what this is, what you're talking about, that you are part of change, it's not gonna work. So the number one, and the reason I start with this is you have to truly believe. For those of you I have not met, my name is Lester Morales. I am probably one of the most pathetic people in this room. My degree is in risk management insurance. This is all I've ever done. I'm doing this on purpose. Yes, I know, ma'am, I am completely pathetic. I can hear you. My story. I think it's important to understand why I'm so passionate. So you guys hear, hey, I'm the obnoxious guy. There's a reason I'm an obnoxious guy. So my story starts, I was born, and some of you know, as my Spencer Allen buddy, I was born and I currently live in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That was my water. My parents moved us to the States when I was 3 years old, chasing the American dream. Back in the, I don't want to age myself, but back in the early 80s, they were running commercials. Yes, I know, I use moisturizer. You did not know that I'm 42 years old. Back in the 80s, they were running commercials on want to double your pay, take a one-way ticket on Eastern Airlines, for those of you old enough to remember Eastern Airlines, and my parents moved us to the States. I lived an amazing life. I had great parents that taught me what I call the immigrant lifestyle, right? I don't know if you're an immigrant if you come from Puerto Rico, since it's part of the United States, but you know, hustle. This is a picture of my dad and I. I played baseball. I liked Z Cavaricci's. I went to Boys II Men concerts. You know, I was a normal kid until the day after Christmas, when I was 15 years old, my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. For those of you that don't know, multiple myeloma is cancer of your bone marrow. Chemo, radiation, a bone marrow transplant, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of bills. My dad lived for 3 years here at the Moffitt Cancer Center. Now, I look back and I'm lucky that Tampa just happened to have a world-class facility for cancer, but how do you know? So I remember thinking back then, and luckily, Mom worked for the federal government. Dad had a job. We had health insurance. Everything's great. But the reality of it is, when you look at the types of plans that historically we all have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say that our industry has been putting employers in, The reality of it is, what family has $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of out-of-pocket expense just laying around when you're trying to send 2 kids to baseball camp, put Z Cavaricis on their butt, and put Jordans on their feet? So my parents, when I was 17 years old, filed bankruptcy. My dad was on a drug called Revlimid. Revlimid, now I know, doing what we know, that we could take that off of somebody's plan. So I go to college thinking, holy cow, bankruptcy. How do you recover from that? Now, luckily, I went to the Florida State University, go Noles, and Florida State had an insurance program. So my parents are giving me $200 a month out of my dad's disability policy. I have to be an insurance nerd. It's like fate. So I have had an amazing career. I've never actually placed a fully insured policy. My career started selling stop loss, and that's all I've ever done. But most of you know, I spent most of my career at Willis Towers Watson. I grew my own $3.5 million book by age 30, and then I ran sales for North America. I had 200 producers that worked for me. I don't say that to brag. I say that so that you understand. When I'm standing up here telling you and why I'm so passionate about this, I had a very nice career doing it the wrong way. And it was until that day. Any Latinos in the room? All right, we got a couple. We are big mama's boys. This is the insurance industry. I knew there was only going to be like one hand or two pulling up, right? The reality of it is, it was a day, and I'll never forget that call. Pancreatic cancer. Nurse Deb talked about it today. 5 years. Mom lived 3. And so by age 40, both of my parents had passed. So I realized dealing with mom's situation, how confusing it is. Now, luckily, both of my brother and I play near the health insurance space, so we had the understanding. But I realized at that point that I didn't want to be and continue building plans that profited the bad guys and didn't do good. So I wanted to be part of the solution. So I have, for the last 5 years, become emphatic about learning everything that there is to do about this new space. So today we're going to run through a conversation on, we need to, as an industry, stop talking about it and start doing it. And I put that in 4 different buckets, from attracting new prospects and clients, how do you get most of them, and down the funnel. So that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about this starting with you. So this is interesting. The reality of it is, there are so many webinars, podcasts, you listen to them every single day, all of you. We're on podcasts, we're doing things. We Google everything. Hey, what's that term? I'm going to Google it over here. We become infatuated with understanding terms and all of these buzzwords that we have out there. You come to events like this, or Nelson's event, or whatever it is, and the reality of it is, you've got this thing nailed. You've got the talk track down. You are having a conversation every day. You know every single buzzword. You practice it in the mirror. How many of you practice your presentations in the mirror? Good, you're supposed to. I've done this one 7 times already. And the reality of it is, you spend endless amount of hours learning about this, trying to learn more, trying to figure out who's doing what, which vendor do I call? Well, I need to take another meeting, all of this stuff, and then you start making calls. You start making calls and nobody takes you up on this, and you're like, what the So the conversation I want to have, and some ideas that I want to give you on how do we get more people doing this. Because you all stood up and said that the reality of what this is, you believe in this, you know it's the right way to go, but we all need more clients. Is there anybody in here that says, nah, I'm good, I'm full, I can't take any more? So if that's the case, we need more, and this is one of the biggest reasons. We, as an industry, forget to equate what it is we do with the WIFM. Anybody know what that means? What's in it for me? So that is going to be a conversation we're going to have. 2, how many times do we chase clients that aren't ready? They're simply not ready. It's like my dating life. If I keep asking them, they're eventually going to go out, but we should probably just go out with one that wants to go out. The last one is, do they view you as Yoda? So remember, and if those of you that were in the session that I had with the HR girls, the reality of it is the client is the hero. You are the journeyman. You are the guide. So I want to talk about that in a piece of what's in it for me. You are the guide. And without understanding that, you will never get people to start coming down the funnel. Now, what's a word that we use every day in this business that we're trying to what? We're trying to change, right? The word change is shit. Stop using it. Is there anybody in here that loves change? We love change. Your clients don't like change. The word change is scary, especially right now with the Great Resignation. How many of you have heard, man, we're going through a lot at work. We can't change anything. And then we come in and say, no, we're advocates of change. We want to change everything. I used to have on my website, I want to be part of the radical changes. Anybody want to go radical? And so I'm telling you this from stubbing my toe and bruising my elbows on this. Don't do it. Now, when we go in and talk about change and all the things that we want to do, we're going to do RBP, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The first thing that a client is thinking is what? That's the second thing, but the first one is, my baby's ugly. For anybody that said not all babies are cute, they're freaking lying, right? I don't have any kids, but mine's going to come out like a mutant, right? The second thing, DC just said it, this is just more work. So we're coming in all excited. We know that it can change something, and the reality of it is they're hearing, wait, you're telling me that what I'm doing today sucks, thanks. Or two, man, you're dropping a bunch of work on my lap. So when we think about these things, these are part of the sales channel that we need to understand that that's an automatic obstacle to them saying yes eventually. So if we know that, that's the way we have to go. But the other thing that we have to do is make clients understand that making no decision is making a decision. And that is something that, again, if you truly believe what this is the case, fine client, you cannot make this change. You cannot change that prescription drug strategy. You cannot do whatever. But please out loud say that by not changing something, you are making people make a decision. Because there are people every day that are deciding whether to pay their mortgage or go to the prescription and get their next prescription. I've lived in a family that did it. So the reality of not putting in script sourcing or going bankrupt, those are real decisions. And so I'm urging everybody as an industry, the people that are sitting next to you are not your competitors. The competitor is the normal shit that happens every single day. And the reality of this room and what this whole you thing is all about is joining forces and doing this. Again, you have to, I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I put Yoda in there forever. So make them the hero. You are the person that's going to help them with the heavy lift and making sure you're telling that story ahead of time. Now, the what's in it for me. So this is one of my best strategies I've ever had my entire career. Now, who's typically in the room when we sell? These are your three buyers, yeah? I'm going to ask you guys a technique. If I'm you, this is how we started every single one of our presentations at Willis. Now, your solutions aren't changing. How they apply to a particular buyer, whether that is one buyer, an individual persona, CE, CF, or HR, or that individual employer is what changes. So I urge you, start your presentations when you're talking about, hey, tell me about you when you're going around making the introductions, and I would like to know some of the goals and objectives that you guys have as an organization. And I would like you each to tell me those. So you have those on a slide and let them go around and tell you what's important to them. Why? Here's what I would do. I would take this flip chart and I would say, hey, Bill, the CEO, says this. Gary, the CFO, and Nicole, the HR, they say this. Why? When I'm going through my presentation, I'm not necessarily changing what it is that I'm talking about, but if I understand that cost savings isn't that big of a deal, I'm not going to go in and say, do you know how much money you can save? If they tell me recruitment retention is a hard idea, well, what are you going to do to fix that? Oh, you know what? Well, we wanted to put more in the 401k. Well, what if I told you the strategies that we can do can find you $1 million that now you can increase that 1% increase on your 401k contribution? Does that sound like something? Hey, Rebecca, you told me that at the end of the day, your goal is to X. Do you see how this particular strategy can get you there? I didn't change my story. I related the what's in it for me for each individual buyer in that room. But it's the same questions every single time. It is a foolproof way of doing it. So I advise you all, buy one of these, put it in your car, have one in your office, do it behind whatever it is, but ask those questions, because at the end of the day, you are going to bridge the gap with where it is you want to take them and what is important to them. Cool? Cool, thank you. All right. Everybody feels better with a plan. In our skit over there, I was like, yeah, just trust me. The reality of it is, remember when Uber came out? I remember one of the first things I thought about is, I never have to worry if the taxi driver is screwing me anymore. Right? I've been to Manhattan 150 times. I don't know where I'm going. I get in the cab and they take me wherever I'm going to go. But the reality of it is, I don't know whether they're supposed to go down this street, down this street, down this street. Anybody have LASIK? I had LASIK surgery a long time ago, and I was bugging with Spencer that I need his glasses because I can't see anymore. But one of the things that I thought was phenomenal in LASIK, they told you everything that was going to happen right before it happened. So like when you're smelling burnt flesh, you knew it was yours, right? You're not like, so the point of this is that everybody feels better understanding that there is a plan. So as salespeople, we think, oh, our job is to be the tip of the spear. But the reality of it is, you drive for show, you putt for dough. In this scenario, we're talking about, it's all about the implementation. So making sure you have a plan, making sure that you can guide somebody down. Hey, let me tell you how this is going to go. Meeting 1 is going to look like this. After we get this, meeting 2 is going to do this. Meeting 3 is going to do this. When you say yes, this is exactly the implementation process that we've done, and we've done it 1,000,000 times. Don't worry. Is that a better conversation than, hey, do you want to buy, and then I didn't show you how we're going to implement it? It is such a game changer to have a process. To the extent you can brand your process, even the better. A big one. Oh man, I ruined my thing. Ask them if they're ready. Man, if I could go back and go 4 years back in time, I would have gotten a lot more strict on this. How many employers have ever told you they love how much they're spending on healthcare? Has anybody? No. The reality of it is, what we're talking about, there's not a person that is not going to think this is at least interesting. Right? The reality of it is, we all know that there are certain things that a client has to be ready to do in order to be a good client for these types of strategies. Ask them, you want the client that does this. Hey client, understand that a good client for us is someone that's okay standing in front of their employee population, telling them that healthcare is our second largest expense, and when you participate in being a better healthcare consumer, you save the organization money, and if we can save money, we will share it with you. That's a real conversation that we have every single day in other aspects of our lives, but clients pussyfoot around this conversation that, hey, unless anybody wants to take a pay cut, our only other way we manage our second largest expense is for you guys to do what you do in every other aspect of your life, because you don't go buy the first car you see on the local auto dealership. The second thing about this is, we know what success is. If we know what success is, why do we give so many optionalities and don't tell clients what to do? How many times, especially you service providers, you partners on here, you'll laugh because you've been with brokers, the client asks a question, it's one of those softball questions that they can knock out of the park, but they're too big of a wuss to tell the client, no, this is exactly how you do it. And they're like, well, you can decide how you do it. Knowing that if they actually take that decision, it's going to be a colossal cluster. So if you understand what the definition of success is, then take the client down that. If they don't want to go down that road, walk away. There are so many people. You know how many % of people don't do what we're talking about this week? 99. So if there's somebody that says, I don't want to do that, fantastic. Tell Anthem to keep giving you your 12% rate increases. Call me when you're ready. But the reality of it is we don't have enough in the pipeline to be able to walk away from the ones that don't want to do what we need them to do. Fair? All right. Employers must trust you. All right. You're in a meeting. You nailed it. Killed it. Like you're walking out with that little swag walk. And you get into your car. By the time you get into your car, what has happened already? What has the employer done? They've Googled the shit out of you. Have you ever Googled yourself? If you're not on social media, if you're not posting cool stuff out there because you don't like it and I'm an introvert or I'm not good in front of camera, whatever the hell medium of communication you are okay doing, and if you're not okay doing it, record somebody else. But the reality of it is we all do it ourselves. Somebody sits in front of you, what's the first thing you do when they walk out of your office? You Google them. But the reality of it is most of us have never gone on and Googled ourselves to say, hey, we just came off as this credible expert in something. We walk out and they Google us and the last picture they see is your kid's softball game that you coached 8 years ago. So the reality of it is you have to build the persona because in order for somebody to do business with you, they have to trust you. Ways of getting trust. If you don't have your own case studies, steal them. Steal them from other people. I promise I have hundreds of them I will give you. But the reality of it is, who wants to be first? Nobody likes going first. But we walk in, they're like, hey, this strategy is amazing. There's a bunch of people doing it. And then you don't even have a case study or a testimonial? Trust me. That's what we're telling people to do. So if you're not building these into your presentations on, hey, other people, so I do, if you follow me on social media, I do Numbers Don't Lie Friday. Why? I want to create FOMO. I want to send so many things out. And if we did this as an industry, if everybody every single week sent out testimonials and case studies, and if we flooded the internet, eventually employers will be like, damn, I got to check this out. How many times can you see an employer doing something amazing, see an employee not having to pay anything for a drug, and be like, oh, you know what, that sounds stupid. I don't want to have my employees do that. So understand these things, these testimonials, they're amazing. Is Nurse Deb in here? Nurse Deb, I have her nurses try to send me every time you talk to somebody, they say something cool, send it. I want to flood the internet. So if we're all doing this together, I promise you, tag everybody else in this room with every good story. Why? Because the reality of it is most people hear the negative. How many of you fly a lot? Did you tell the flight attendant when you were getting off the plane, hey, thanks, everything worked out exactly the way it's supposed to? No! You only that. My meal was cold. The lady stunk next to me. The guy was too fat next to me. Whatever it is. Nobody ever says, hey, nailed it. Happened exactly the way that I paid you to do it. I appreciate that. So that's what happens with us. We move one thing. And the first time, a script comes late, or the CEO's wife, because it happens every single time, right, goes to the pharmacy and a digit got transposed, the end of the world happens, although Anthem has a 13% or 13 NPS. Why? Because we don't actually brag about the cool shit that we all do. There's so many testimonials. If we just flooded the world with it, it'd be huge. I don't know why this was not formatted this way, I promise. Who's your biggest competitor? So, is it these guys? Sometimes I think we feel it might be these guys, right? It's the tail wagging the dog a little bit. The reality of it is our biggest competitor for this movement is you. Is Contorno in here? I gave him a Contorno-ism. Contorno talks about the imposter syndrome all the time, right? Ugh, I don't know. Can I really compete against insert broker here? I don't really know. I've never done script sourcing before. I've never put in a transparent PBM. So then you don't pick up the phone. You don't make that call. You don't leverage that relationship. I'm here to tell you that if you have to change your mindset, and if everybody here every single day woke up with the motivation that the person that we all serve is that employee, that you not picking up that phone or leveraging that relationship or pushing that client a little bit more, it is you purposefully telling somebody, I don't give up about you. That's literally what I wake up every single day doing, is thinking about the people that we could serve if we got up and did something different. If we all, a couple hundred people in this conference, did that, it would be amazing. So the imposter syndrome is not necessarily all about you. Nurse Deb said it, get it out of your ego. I'm a big ego guy. This has nothing to do about us. This has all to do with the people that we serve every single day. And if you focus on that, it is going to be a lot easier to eat the crap that we're going to have to try to convince them that Anthem is not the answer once again. Who do these people work for? You've already seen this one. Is Wolpert here? Is he here? I know he's here. Chris Wolpert. So Chris Wolpert has all of us on his website as his team. A lot of you probably think that's lying or fibbing or generic or whatever. I think it's brilliant. The reality of it is, any one of you that called any one of those people, Gary Becker, will you go in a meeting with anybody, any broker who has good intention, will you go help them sell a deal?
My pleasure.
All day long. All day long. So if you are somebody in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the guy I rode up with in the elevator from somewhere I don't know in Denver, outside of Colorado, wherever it is, the reality of it is we would all support you. If we, as an industry, everybody said, hey, you know what, you need help, call me, this imposter syndrome goes away, but most importantly, they have the case studies. They have the client testimonials. You need a manufacturing company? Griffin just happens to have a bunch of them. But the reality of it is we approach this so far segmentation-wise that, no, I'm a broker in Atlanta, so am I, and we're competition. Nobody in here is competitors with somebody else. If that's one thing you take from this, it is my one thing. Because if we think about this, the rising tide lifts all boats. How many of you have talked to a client or prospect, you told them something, they're like, why haven't I ever heard that before? And they automatically think it's BS because they've never heard it. Well, what if 5 other people in your market were also saying the same thing? The credibility starts to be there. So don't think that you are alone, because everybody's having the same issue. And the reality of it is there's so many people that would help you and support you in that conversation. There is not a person, I don't care if you're David Contorno, if you're Emma, if you're anybody that's going to do this alone. This is going to take a village. And the day we start thinking about that, the day you start thinking about that when you're going into sales presentations and you're talking to an employer about this, hey, you know what? I've not done a lot of these, but I partner with people who do all day long, and they have all of this expertise. Don't be ashamed of bringing other people into presentations. It will help you. Last time I checked, half of something is better than all or nothing. And if you truly believe that these are the right things, then every day you don't call somebody and don't make a call, don't do something because you're nervous about it. Just think to yourself, I don't care about employees. That should be your trigger. That should be your vice, 100%. So, second, convert. You know the easiest way to get people to believe in the story? There's one word. This is where audience participation comes in. What is it? What is it? Vision. Data. You can't fudge. Well, you can fudge. But the reality of it is, stories are way better with data. So I wanted to walk you through a couple of things. Now, how many of you have ever bought a car without test driving it? It's not the point of my story. Most of you would not buy a car without test driving it. You wouldn't buy a house without walking inside of it. Your financial advisor, the way they got you is you gave them your data, they came in and said, hey, these are all these things that I can do. But the reality of it in our business is sometimes we don't want to get our hands dirty. I am here to tell you, get your hands dirty. There's a lot of people that'll tell you don't do free work. I'm not one of them. Do free work. Why? It's a trust thing. If somebody gives me their data, my close percentage goes from like 12 to 38. If I get the rest of the data, it goes to like 62. So I'm going to show you a couple of analysis. Is analysis plural? And is it like goose? Geese? Gooses? Gooses? I don't know what the word is, but analysi. I'm going to show you a couple of those things that have really helped through the sales funnel. If you want any of these, you let me know and I will get you a copy of any of these. Okay, so I do something that's called a crawl, walk, run analysis. Hey, client, there's a bunch of things that you can do to lower healthcare costs. You're not ready to do all of them probably all at one time. You could do them at your own pace, but let's stop thinking about healthcare being a year-to-year conversation, because last time I checked, you want to be in business tomorrow and you're going to have employees tomorrow, yeah? Well, fantastic. Over the course of a couple of years, look at the compounding effect of this. How many CFOs over a period of time can see a $14 million number and not say, hey, you know what, I should probably investigate that a little bit more? No, you're not leaving. You sit right there. I'm just kidding. Get out. Second, you have a fully insured group. Gary, does this look familiar? You have a fully insured group. You've got limited amount of data. You could literally, Nicole, how many of these do you run for me a week?
A lot.
20. 20 easily, Nicole runs for me a week. I now can walk into a client. I only have their top 25. I can tell them that on all of their top 25 drugs, there is a conversation to have about whether I could source this internationally, get a manufacturer's assistance program, or any domestic tourism type program. This is real. It's their data. This client could say, I can't see that far. What's it say? 800 and something thousand dollars? And now the conversation of is, what if we only got a third of it? I'm not saying it's going to be 100%, but what if we got a third? Look how many people you can impact. Look, and Bill Miller just left. I think this is, oh, there you go. Look, I was going to talk shit about you too. This is a full repricing. So, hey, now a prospect, they're liking this story. They get you their entire drug. You can reprice it and show them line by line the cost of the drug that they're spending versus what it would be in a transparent model. You know how many stories you could tell? I've heard Bill Miller talk about him being a middle-aged white guy and on a statin a million times. I could tell the whole story. I'm pretty sure they knew. But the reality of it, okay, now let's talk about cost and quality. Do I have any 6 degrees friends in here? These are all data that our partners have available that you could literally walk in and help tell a story. Whatever prospect you're going into, you can have a conversation about, hey, the real conversation of cost and quality and show them in their market. Imagine sitting with a prospect in Atlanta, in wherever, and having a conversation about the hospitals that they probably go to, and they thought that that hospital was awesome, and you can now show them that hospital sucks. Maybe that's not the right approach, but at the end of the day, I would rather know, me personally, I'd rather know that healthcare is either good or not good. Anybody from Coral here? Jesus, none of them came to my presentation. This is a redirection opportunity. Now a client was super stoked. We've had great conversations with them. They give us the full claims dump. Now we can go through and show them, hey, you know how many CT scans you had at the hospital? An average CT scan you paid at a hospital was $4,600, and within 5 miles of your office, there are 2 independent facilities that could do it for $650. You're showing it in their own data. You might not know how to do this analysis, but it doesn't matter. There are people that will help you do this. You can leverage a Rolodex. You can get into that 700 life group that's self-funded. You know who's not doing that? Willis, Towers. Insert big box store there, because I'm telling you, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't be allowed. I was not allowed to use the resources that we paid for on a prospective client. So I couldn't dive into that. So you want to help somebody? Don't throw stones, because you all have clients that are still doing the status quo. Cool. You've now seen the light. You now know what you can do with the things that you have. So the Frank Mike Droppa yesterday said, hey, we have it going right, because at the end of the day, we're talking about we have a responsibility. We are now superheroes. We are Spider-Man, and with great power comes great responsibility. I always talk about it in the banana peel questions. Ask your prospects to ask their carrier, their clients, or their brokers rather, the questions that you want them to answer. Hey, does your PBM allow you to? Does your TPA allow you to? Just ask the question. A good TPA allows you to do this. Educate them and say, I would encourage you to ask your broker, your whatever, these questions. When they come back and tell you no, you're going to have to think about, are you working with the right people? And set the banana peel. Because the answer is what the answer is. Optum is never going to let you get people on patient assistance programs. So don't say, you can't do that with your PBM. Ask them. I would ask your PBM if you're able to line by line audit every single one of their claims. When they come back and say no, now you look like the hero. So do free work, period, the end. If you can get a data, that prospect is engaged. If that prospect is engaged, blood is in the water, be a effing shark. Do the work. All right, pitch stories, not products. This was a group I just sold. The group said yes all the way through the chain, never knew who their TPA was, never knew who their stop-loss company was, and never knew who their PBM was. Stop worrying about all of the different components. Get clients on board with the strategy. There are fantastic TPA partners here. There are fantastic PBM partners here. But some clients like strawberries, some clients like vanilla. So in my opinion, you have conversations and be the educator, not the you have to work with so-and-so. And I love my partners. I bring them a lot of business, but at the end of the day, the reality of it is, it's not my job to sell their differentiation. It's my job to bring more people down to the game. Implementation. This is where everybody could make a lot more money. And I kid you not, being able to. So there's a couple of things. Let me paint the picture. I finally got off my ass and I started making those calls. I got the talk track down. I met with them twice, and now they're like, yeah, we want to do it. What happens when the dog catches the car? Do you have an implementation plan? Do you know what the communication strategy is going to be? If you do, the reality of it is clients like to be told what to do. This is kind of an anomaly. In Willis 101 school, they would say, hey, put 3 choices down next to it and let the client choose. Last time I checked, clients don't fire themselves. Have you ever put in a strategy and it worked? You get the hero. Have you put in a strategy and it doesn't work? Does the client say, no, I chose that strategy too, I'm going to fire myself? No! I'm going to look my partner in the eye and I'm going to say, hey, by the way, I recommended you. Don't screw up because we're getting thrown out with the bathwater. So the reality of it is, leaving it up to the client to choose and it doesn't work, you're still getting fired. Say that over and over again. You're the only person that gets fired. Be okay with that, but then choose your partners. Choose your partners that are going to support you. Plan the plannable. I cannot tell you how important it is to have every single piece of the implementation plan ready to rock. Timelines. Communication strategies. Everything. All right. The last hurrah, success. You know the easiest way to get people to buy more? Show them their peers of people that are doing it. So in an industry where there is just all of this negative publicity, we have to brag a lot. So every service provider partner in here, people call them vendors, frienders, whatever it is, please publish as many good stories and send it out to everybody. And can I get all of the advisors to raise your hand saying, promise, I will forward that every single time I get some good news. Raise your hands, all of you, because the only way we do that is when Reed tells us a good story, when the TPA ABC tells us good stories, when script sourcing sends around stuff. Gary puts more stuff on the internet and he's 100 years old. Case studies, testimonials, data. Tell the story with the data. Let the data and then publish, de-identify the client and send it out as a good story. Look, this is the proof. Here it is. Gary, you're not really 100, but okay. All right. So my 10 rules. I'm going to just reiterate the first one. I'm a passionate dude about this, not for any other reason other than I have now seen both sides. I have done it for a long time the normal way. I have now been doing it I have had more fun the last 5 years, and running a business sucks, as most of you know who run a business. It sucks. Being a really good producer at Willis was amazing. Running a business sucks, but really being able to help people is unbelievable. So, I have a downloadable. Scan this. Oh man, I actually printed out postcards to give every one of you, and I forgot them. Anyway, scan this. This will be a downloadable that you can get. Yes, I'm going to get your email address. Yes, I'm going to send you stuff. But the reality of it is, it'll have the top 10 things. I am going to send you a talk track on each of those 10 things. Why? Because we all need to do this. So, are you ready? I am not kidding when I tell you, you are going to leave this place fired up, right? How many of you learned something this week? You've met somebody cool, you're jazzed up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get back to your office, and on Thursday, a fire is going to happen, and you're going to go back to normal life. Your Anthem rep is going to take you out to brunch on Friday, and you're going to forget all of this cool stuff. Close your eyes right now. Taste how awesome it feels to be in this room with a bunch of people who give a shit, who really do care. Everybody here paid their own money to come learn about things to impact lives. We know what the answer is if we don't intervene. We know what the answer is. This is the answer. These people are not fixing it. They can't. their stock price will not allow them to fix it. Nelson, I'm stealing a slide from you. If we don't do something about it, this is going to be the answer. I'm not going to the DMV to get my checkup. If the government can prove to me they can do anything right, then I might consider, but the reality of it is, if we don't do something, it's not going back the other way. It is literally upon all of us in this room to do it. So, I'm going to start, or I'm going to end the same way I started. If you truly believe that this is the right way of doing it, I need everybody to end this standing up. And I'm done. Thank you guys so much.